Here we are with Jerry Perkins. Also, you may know him as MasterXeon1001. He has a lot of stuff on YouTube. And well, instead of me making the introduction, I would like you to talk to us about you and where did you come from, where are you from, and all this stuff. How old are you? Please, could you give us an introduction?
Oh yeah. So that's my name is Jerry Perkins, also known as MasterXeon1001. I started Blender on February 1st of 2010, which I remember specifically because I was starting in a very dead-end call center at that time. So a lot of my background was in using Blender in this call center on really horrible computers that had performance issues. So that was kind of where I got my beginnings, was having a computer that worked against me. But after I started getting a better computer for home, then that's when I began to take it a little more seriously. But I mean, if you see my videos, like my very oldest ones, you'll notice that I was recording on a Mac and the screen was distorting and all sorts of things because of very strange computer circumstances that happened. But that's kind of where it came from.
All right. And how did you get started with 3D? I mean, what pushed you to learn 3D? Because you were in this call center, but that's kind of not related with 3D, right? So what pushed you to get it started?
I'm always a person that's always looking for the next thing. So even when I'm working any job, I'm always looking for the next job and thinking about the next job while I'm working any job, because any day you could end and that would be like your life being thrown into turmoil. So before starting 3D, I was actually studying web design because that was going to be the next thing I was going to get into, was trying to make interactive web pages. But in one of the books, they mentioned that one of the ways you can import assets into a scene on a web page is using Blender. Compared to all these other programs I never heard of, Maya Max, Blender was the free solution. And all I was trying to do was get interactive paper airplanes on a web page and like text and stuff like that. And that was kind of what got me into Blender. So my first experiences was in 2.49, trying to import text as an SVG object using their menus. Like I remember it because I did it and I was like, I don't think I'll ever be able to do this again. Like I don't remember where I found those menus at. They were so deep, I was approaching it as an outsider. But
yeah, especially in the last version, and in those old versions, the interface had nothing to do with what we have now, and I think it was much more complex for a beginner to get started.
Oh yeah, first thing you do when you open 2.49 is close it. Like I closed it a lot when I first got into Blender. Like I was afraid. Like sometimes I would get so many videos on the screen, and I just had to close. Like this is too much. I don't think I'm ready for this.
Yeah, well, for me it was kind of different because I already came from a background in which I had been using other 3D software for a while, especially 3ds Max. I had been using it for some 6 years or so, and the first time I got into Blender, my first impulse was to close it. That's exactly that. I saw it was free and stuff, and I got interested, but then I checked it out, I installed it, and I couldn't stand the interface. I didn't understand anything. It was this 3D cursor and stuff. And I think it took me some 4 or 5 versions checking it out and closing it until I finally decided I was going to stick with it and try to learn.
I was one of those stubborn people that, didn't even want to move to 2.5 after getting used to 2.49. Like I was like, 2.49, I finally got over this curve. I'm never leaving. I can't even see the interface now without recoiling in horror. Like, oh my God, 2.49, those days.
Yeah.
But one thing they had was that preview window where you could draw the square and then it will render it and then it'll composite it in that little square. Like that was probably one of the best things about 2.49 that 2.5 still hasn't gotten yet. And like I still remember that because I would always draw that little square and just render and composite right there in the viewport.
Yeah, that preview window was very, very, very nice. I remember missing it the first time I used the new version, Blender 2.5. We are already in 2.7, but it's like the family of 2.5. And yeah, at the beginning I missed that window. It was amazing. And but I was kind of I kind of was used to other software. So Blender 2.49, the interface wasn't quite what I was looking for. And so I was one of the first ones to jump into 2.5 as soon as it was slightly usable. So yeah, but that window was definitely something that I would like to see coming back at some point.
Yeah, it'd be crazy to see it at this point in cycles. They almost got it. Like we're so close to it. Like we got a really crazy interactive window now, but
Yeah.
just just those days, I guess. Thinking back on that version.
Yeah, I think the next thing I would like to hear your thoughts about this too, because the next thing I think I know you have been working a little with PBR and this stuff, and are you not interested, or I mean, for sure you must be interested in seeing PBR come into the 3D viewport in real time
Oh
in
yeah,
Blender?
one of my favorite alternate programs in Blender is actually Maya because they have the Viewport 2.0, which is just amazing. I mean, they have motion blur in the viewport. I mean, you just pause a frame and it's just motion blur right there in front of your face. It's crazy. They have ambient occlusion in
Wow.
the viewport. They have depth of field. And I mean, we're steadily getting all those things. You know, if you're thinking off the top of your head, hey, we got those features. We do. But the last thing we
Hmm.
need is the DirectX 11, PBR, next generation viewport. Like whether they do it using OpenGL or they go into these newer solutions, either way, like I'm definitely looking forward to it because like I've been even playing with the PBR branch, and the thing is crazy. Like it'll be interesting to see, reflectivity and roughness being, uh, depicted in the viewport because that's
Yeah.
stuff you see in other programs. Like, I hate to bring in other programs into the mix, but I mean, you compare it with Maya, and for example, they have like the T menu, so you can take a light, press T, and it'll immediately put a target empty in front of it that you can begin moving to maneuver the light and aim it. So it's definitely those type of usability things that are, things I look forward to, like in the next Blender. But I think the system as it's currently looking is definitely promising.
Yeah. Very, very promising. And there are features in the making that I'm looking forward. So let's see what the developers come to us. Well, talking about developers, you are kind of getting into development, but how are you doing it? Can you talk to us about HardOps and how the process has gone, who you're working with?
Oh yeah, so HardOps has been an adventure in coding, to say the least. Whenever I first started it, it was an idea on trying to basically turn some keys into macros to try to reduce the amount of keystrokes that are being used, because this one thing that I'm always conscious of when I'm using Blender is, I did that, but it also took a lot of clicks. Also why I recommend getting a tablet. It's just organic. You just pick it up, touch, and you just forget for a little bit that you're in a very highly technical program where every button does something possibly destructive or not good or undesired. But with my development, it was just a matter of just creating a tool set. But, the whole idea came about as a result of meeting this guy, Adrian Murkowski, who is what I call the other 50% of HardOps. He's a major component in his development and is probably one of the best people I've had the pleasure of working with. In the earlier times, prior to 005, it was just me and him basically working on things, getting auxiliary help occasionally, but a lot of it was just experimentation, stand up late, and just laughing about things in Blender and workflows and arguing over things. But as it went on, we got more people involved on the team. In fact, for this version 007, we were able to convince Jacques Luck, who is developing the animation notes for Blender, into taking.
Yeah, those are amazing.
So he's actually a Python master. Like he's so dangerous with Python, it's crazy. It's amazing to work with him. Just seeing him fix things that I've done has taught me so much about coding, and is empowering, because he has such a completely different attitude. In fact, that's kind of what it's been working with all these people everywhere, is different attitudes around the globe, different philosophies. I never knew Blender had such a reach inside of Spanish speaking communities, or French speaking, or Japanese, or German. And these are audiences I've never thought of, that are possibly in the shadows doing really amazing things that we're just not aware of because of potential language barriers. So through the
Yeah.
process of connecting with all these people, I see that there's so much extra to Blender than what's mentioned on the website, what's in the wiki, what's in the box, because everybody at some point, when they get far enough in their adventure, they're going to make Blender theirs, and that's the best step of all. I remember I was reading on the training site because I wanted to look into their certified training program, and they had these like 12 principles they were looking for of mastery to give the certification. One of them was Python, and I never thought I'd get that, but now I can confidently say I've been through most of the aspects of Blender, from rigging to modeling to compositing to simulation, at least in some respect. So I mean, even to new users, I always recommend first see everything that's there, then focus on what you got to do, instead of I'm going to master modeling, then I'm going to look into rigging. Like, you're not going to do that. Just learn it all at the same time, because you may find that smoke is only a button away, or water is only 2 buttons. And then it is, because object, quick smoke, quick fire, quick explode, boom, done. Effects in there. So I mean, that's something already you can just start adding to your work off the bat.
Of course. Yeah, and maybe then you can spend some time tweaking it and getting into the details. But at least getting started in every aspect is something I also recommend to my students, because it's like, even if you are going to end up just modeling in a studio, it's good to know the whole process and how everything works. So when you are doing something, you're caring about how this that you're doing will affect the next guy, and they will value that knowledge. Because not everyone has it. Like, if you only care about modeling, you may not be aware of the position of the loops that you're doing, how it will affect to the guy that will have to rig that model. And that can be a potential problem in a studio environment or when working on a team. So I totally agree with you there.
Oh yeah, and it also helps for people that are looking into Blender from the outside. A lot of people, when they're like, yeah, I'm thinking about Blender, but it doesn't do this, or it doesn't do this, or how do you do this, And so it's definitely important to have a rounded knowledge, especially in a program like this. Like, so even though people look at me and they're like, hey, that guy's a modeler or that guy's a sculptor, I kind of frown at that, because any day I could just decide, hey, I'm gonna rig this character, or whatever the occasion calls for. I'll have to rise to it. Especially as an indie artist, you have to learn how to do it all yourself. And if you do it in stages, you're gonna end up with a very mishandled skill tree of skills here. I was previously working in animation, trying to learn that. However, after all the frustration of keyframes and Bezier curves and translating axes, gimbal lock, I finally decided I was going to just wait a bit and to see how motion capture technology goes over the next couple of years. I was hoping that the Kinect would have had a better motion capture sensor to begin using that for things, but that's almost my plan now, is to just learn it casually and just wait for the technology to get better. But I kind of got off topic there. But back to HardOps though.
No. It's what this is. It's what this is. I mean, we can just talk freely about whatever thing, because it's always interesting to learn about these points of view. And you're right about that. Sometimes, you may not like exactly how something is working, but nowadays technology advances at a very, very fast speed. And maybe just waiting for a couple of years, and we'll have some technology that allows us to do it more easily, like sculpting, like you're doing here in this live demo. For the guys that are just listening to the podcast, you're not seeing it, but in the video you will be able to see it. He's doing some kind of sculpt here for a hard surface model, and these sculpt techniques just 10 years ago, nobody knew about this. I mean, this didn't exist. ZBrush came just a few years ago, and nowadays we use it all the time. So it's nowadays things I think are getting easier, and even with things like HardOps, you may have a hard time just trying to do some models and stuff, but then an add-on like HardOps comes in, and it makes your work a lot easier and faster. So yeah, it's what it's all about.
And that was the goal, was to, if it makes it easier for anyone that's using a tool, then it's done its job. But if you've also learned things about modeling, or, you're One of the things about 3D that always kind of got me is the amount of technical know-how that's required behind doing the things that you envision. You start out 3D and you're like, oh, awesome, I'm going to make this thing like this thing that inspired me to get into 3D in the first place. But, now I think about every test, I'm like, I see that would be a long time modeling, compositing, rigging, texturing, all that stuff. So it's definitely important to be able to have an easy workflow. Like your pipeline should be fun and easy, where you can get from point A to point B without issue. Because every time you get hung, it just makes that project all the more longer. Like once a file in Blender is like over 100 megabytes, it becomes a bit of a pain to deal with. Like it's like, I don't know if I want to open this today because it has so many keyframes, it has so many NLA tracks, it has so many in the viewport. It's so massive. There's groups everywhere. There's 800,000 materials, So it's really, at those times, it's really the fundamentals that you learned at the very beginning on page 1. That's what helps you make it through those times. Like, I always get punished because I don't always name things. Like at the end, I'm like, what is this object? Okay, it's plane 0085. I'll remember that. I won't remember that. But because I didn't name it, that's like page 1, like name your object in the outliner, But
yeah, of course.
But 3D can always tend to be made easier. And in fact, after HardOps, I want to try reapproaching other tools. Like I was thinking about even expanding into sculpting, just because, I think there's some ways that sculpting could be just made faster, where, like I almost consider it a game now, where I open Blender, no UI, and I just work as long as I can. Every time I open UI, it's a fail. It means that I had to go and retrieve an item from the UI, and that's people's biggest complaint. I see ZBrush people and they're like, that Blender UI, what are you talking about? Have you seen ZBrush's UI? You got to press T just to take it out of 2.5D mode just to start sculpting. So now I have to come out to go into my brush panel. So maybe we need a floating brush panel. But my goal is definitely to make you able to work as long as possible in full screen mode, because every time you leave out, that's you having to tweak parameters, and they're necessary, but maybe they could be a little less necessary for the creative process.
Yeah, it's like you mean that you would like Blender to be like more art focused and not technical focused. Right?
Well, I mean, both of them still have a place. Instead of, like, I would say, if anything, that I would want in the 2.8 release would just be like more customization. Like more customization you can't go wrong with. Like Blender's already opened their API in such a way where I'm able to do things just through Python that I couldn't think were possible. I'm watching people try to make the same plugin in 3ds Max and Maya and Modo and Houdini, and they're just not as flexible. They don't have that versatility that Blender has, where you can literally take a mesh and dig your hand through it and turn it inside out if you needed to, just through code, versus other applications which require some degree of input from the user in order just to keep the motions moving with your operators. I guess that's kind of complicated code talk, I guess, for doing stuff, but that's how I look at it, is the amount of user input that's needed. So there's a lot of tools that are already very well on the right track. It's just the amount of user input in the actual experience at the end. But I'm not complaining about Blender in any means, because the program, if I was told to organize all these buttons, I would do a much worse job. I would sweep them under the bed. Like, which icons am I using right now? But I think it would be cool if Blender had like a floating icon menu bar that could come and go, that you could customize and have on the screen for your type of workflows that you're using, because a lot of stuff that I'm doing is for workflows. So all I'm doing is customizing tools that are already there. In fact, if you're using HardOps, basically the sharpeners were invented by Campbell Barton, because he single-handedly made all the commits that resulted in us being able to locate sharp edges, add the bevel weights the way that we do. Like, a lot of the control systems were like, there are specific things to Blender. Like, for example, if you have a mesh that's hidden in edit mode, and you apply a Boolean on this mesh that's hidden in edit mode, next time you go in edit mode, the only part that's revealed is the mesh that you recently cut out. Like this is almost a glitch, but it's a very particular behavior as well. So people like me, I'm real lenient. I mean, I'm real strict on the behaviors. Like, is this tool behaving exactly as I remember it? Because I almost think I can use Blender with my eyes closed. I mean, if I lost my vision, I, definitely wouldn't be using Blender, but I could because the tools behave the way that they are. You go in Maya and you do the equivalent of G, and you imagine doing that with your eyes closed, and there's a gimbal that appears on your object that you're going to have to move your cursor and grab and begin moving as long as you want to move the object. Versus in Blender, you press G, it's automatically grabbed and being moved, only that object that's in that selection set that you chose. So, I mean, it's like really, when it gets into the behavioral aspects, it gets really technical. So I'm really nervous about it. Like, I'm pretty sure Ton will keep Blender exactly the way he always has with his vision, because I mean, I've come to trust it now. Like, I get used to some of these features, and I'm like, I see how they intended us to use this. That's brilliant. I was just thinking wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually sometimes have thought, well, what would happen if at some point Ton just feels like retiring or something like that? What will happen? Who will just continue with his vision? Will it be the same? Will the software change a lot? I have thought about this, but I think it's still a long way to go. So let's see what happens. And about these floating menus that you have said. I also noticed that in one of the latest versions of HardOps, you have like a floating menu for the modifiers, right?
Yes. Now, this particular feature is like one of my favorites. Like, I'm not sure if the users are as impressed with it as I am, but whenever this
Well, I am because the for what you have been talking about, it's also how I usually work. In fact, I'm now following giving a course about precisely hard surface modeling, and I just set up Blender in a way that I start from scratch, full screen, no menus, every time. So I enter and I only see the object, right? So I try to work only with keyboard shortcuts and only use the menus whenever they are, extremely needed. And these modifiers is something that keeps bugging me because, whenever I want to add a mirror modifier or I want to add an array or things like that, I have to get out of full screen and go to the properties menu and find the modifiers. And so that kind of gets you a little out of the workflow, right? And so I was surprised when I saw that it was even possible, to have the modifiers in a floating menu out of just pressing a key, I was like, wow, this is something I would definitely love to see in Blender more often.
And Jacques was the one who figured that out. When we first put it, there was an enormous glitch that was about to have to go to release because we couldn't figure it out, where the box wouldn't actually refresh when you changed the parameters, and we could not figure it out for the life of us. And at the very last minute, Jacques was like, yeah, just add this line here. Like that's why he's such a great asset to have on the team, like because he just will point out a simple mistake. He's like, oh, you forgot semicolon. It's like, oh my God, you just fixed a glitch that's been around since 002. But the modifier helper, that one's definitely one of my favorites. In fact, like if you look at it now, it's actually expanded now to have materials, which is still currently being added. But the goal is to have it where you can apply material indexes and stuff like that if you're dealing with a substance-based workflow, or just the way I do it, where I just kind of work and just texture things as I go and just get it for a quick viewport render, just a little quickie while I'm just waiting on something or kicking back. But under the MISC is one that we added here just as a like a ponder menu. This one, we're just everybody on team hopefully is working and just looking at this thinking, what would I put there that would make this convenient? So we've been talking about all these different ideas. And for example, for 008, me and Adrian want to do like a scene in Unreal and render an environment using HardOps and Blender and set all that up real nice. And so we're thinking about loading this with a series of options for helping people get things to Unreal. However, I went into Blender Market, someone already made an add-on for dealing with Unreal. In that case, I'm not going to go and rewrite the will. Like, that's been my philosophy this whole task. Like, if someone else did it better, don't even bother. Like, there was some stuff I wanted to do with mirroring, and there's a guy who made the auto mirror plugin that's just phenomenal. It does more than I could have expected to get it to do. For example, and the auto mirror is, of course, one of the plugins that's external to HardOps. However, if you have it, it unlocks additional options like an Easter egg, which is another thing we wanted to do with HardOps, was kind of add features that could be unlocked by other things being present. For example, the guy that made mirror tools, Paul Gariskin's also a friend of mine. So I was talking with him about the mirror tool, and I'm a big fan of how you can use the curves to guide curvature. So that part's also been implemented. But the auto mirror, if you click the auto mirror button, basically it will take this object, bisect half of it off, and then put a mirror modifier on it, basically ejecting half of the object and putting a mirror modifier on. So whenever you're working, you have the destructive mirror, which is just Alt X, it'll just mirror it. If you have set up your mesh tools symmetrized to work on Alt X. However, also there's under mesh tools the auto mirror. So there's the mirror helper, which is just a pop-up window in case you want to deal with parameters when setting up your mirror. But for people like me, I just like to fire and forget. I tend to always mirror on the X, the negative X always. So I just set a button to just quickly auto mirror. Now I can go in and just begin dealing with this half of an object. However, when you're dealing with Booleans, it's not always ideal to have a mirror modifier active. So that's why the non-destructive one's here. However, with the modifier helper, you can easily go in and just, collapse that, take this, mirror it over, and just get back to work.
That's great. And I was interested about this. I wanted to find the occasion to ask you, and this is a perfect occasion, I guess, because in one of the latest versions, I think it's 007 F. Can it be? Is it possible? You have a pizza button for ordering pizza inside the atom. What is with this? What's with that?
All right, so one of the big jokes with me and all my friends is that I eat a lot of pizza. As a guy that stays inside a lot, I guess I do eat a lot of pizza. So I wanted to add a button in HardOps as a joke about ordering pizza, but the users have been pretty psyched about it. So instead of removing, we were actually putting it in there as a joke just to show people, and then we were going to remove it before release, but instead we were lazy and was like, it's a bunch of work to remove a menu. Just leave the menu. I don't care, so we left the menu. More people liked it. So in the next version of HardOps, we're going to try to take it to another level. So we're already talking about ideas to make it more interactive. Like, I think it'd be cool if it drew a pizza pie menu on the screen, and then you could choose from 3 fonts the place you wanted to go with. Like something highly technological, like maybe more advanced for a pizza than you would think. But that would be super awesome.
You should maybe find sign a contract with pizza providers. And I have a suggestion for here, some feedback in case you want to add it, some new feature. Make it work in other countries, because I'm from Spain and here we don't have Papa John.
Exactly. So many people have already told me about that part. So what we'll do in the next version definitely it'll be customizable. So in the preferences, you should be able to specify your pizza locations. Also, not all countries like pizza. So yeah, I'll perfect it now to work internationally. In fact, I was also making the joke that I should add a button where you could just literally send me a pizza. And that was the subject of a lot of jokes, because it's like, what if you start receiving pizzas at 8 in the morning? Well, hell yeah, I just got an 8 in the morning pizza. I guess I'm having pizza for breakfast.
Oh, that's great. All right, and now we already talked about that you are like to kind of explore the software and do modeling and rigging and rendering and try all this stuff. But is there some specific subject inside the Blender and 3D in general that you like over the others, like modeling or texturing or whatever?
Oh, it's definitely the creation process. As I've become more committed to Blender education and assisting people with getting more in touch with the artistic side of Blender and stop fretting so much about the technical side. I've come to notice that there's a large issue with users being able to get started. It's like, and it happens to everybody. Sometimes I open Blender, I look at a cube, and I'm like, I can make anything. I can start sculpting a robot, I can make a car, I could, and then what stops you? What stops you is probably either it's too much work, or you already know in your head that the result's going to be something that's unacceptable. So I'm hung on that creation process for now until I feel that I've adequately created or done something that would better equip people to get in and just begin creating, because it's such a large thing. Like people say I make a lot of cubes, but the reason I started doing it was because everybody I know has a cube when they start up. So if people started actually giving me back my cubes, I would probably just stop making cubes. However, it's just to demonstrate that you can literally go in with a simple object and just kind of suspend your thinking for a moment and just trim and cut and trim and shift and trim and shift some more, and end up with the result that it's just sometimes I look over the stuff I create, and it's like sometimes I don't remember the thought process that I went into actually making it. It's because I stopped thinking for a moment, just kind of listen to music and just let it go. It's
like now. Or like now that you're working and doing this at the same time that we are speaking, how are you able to do this? I mean, when I explaining things, I can be explaining what I'm doing, but if I have to be talking about something and doing something else, I would be freaking out. I'm really bad at multitasking. I admire you.
That's probably from working in the call center. The whole time I was working in the call center, like these people would call, literally asking the stupidest questions on earth. Like, that's not even exaggerating. I mean, every call was literally me being like, all right, go ahead and unplug your modem. What's the modem? Well, your modem is the box that we gave to you when you got our internet service. Well, I don't remember where that box is. Well, listen, you're going to have to locate this box in order to proceed with this call. We continue discussing this box and the likability of whether or not you have it, seeing that you previously had internet. Having to explain the logic to these people. In the process of explaining that sort of stuff to people, you can do so much in Blender. So, I mean, near the end of my career, it had gotten to the point where customers were busting me not listening, because I would just tune out. I would only hear keywords like blah, 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 internet, lights. Okay, lights. You said lights. What lights? Tell me those lights. Like, I'm a watchdog. So you tell me them lights on that modem right now. Like, that's the most important question on freaking earth right now, is what lights are on your modem. And so, I just zone out, listen to keywords, and that sort of multitasking. I mean, when they allowed me to work at home, it was game over. I mean, I was literally working from home, working in Blender. I have like a 42-inch TV and this ultra-wide monitor. So it's like great, right, being on this computer instead of a work computer. And then on top of that, I was playing Xbox, talking to my friends online, playing games with them, dealing with my roommates, all this stuff at the same time while I'm working this job, and just telling people, please unplug your modem. By the time they found their modem, I could go in the kitchen and start cooking breakfast, put some tortillas on, start cooking some eggs and bacon, and get the chorizo out, and it just already start coming together, all before they found their modem. So I recommend to anybody probably tech support. Like, I mean, I probably wouldn't recommend it to anybody because I like people, but if I didn't like you, I would definitely recommend it. Like, it'll make a Blender master out of you.
Okay, I'll keep it in mind whenever I want to improve my skills. And I have another question for you, and it's since a long while ago I started watching your videos online, because I kind of was interested on what you were able to do, and you were showing a lot of stuff in the same video, like huge videos of 1 hour and a half showing the whole process of making something cool. And I was wondering, what was the reason that made you start sharing these videos? Did you expect this to be successful, or did you expect it for some people to be interested on them?
Well, when I first started making videos, the responses weren't very good. However, the responses always drive you, I guess, or don't drive you or become your excuse. So in my case, the more negative criticism I ever receive, the more I'm going to show you. So, that's kind of the same attitude I had with Blender. Like, when I first started, I was like mauling ducks and guns and controllers. So, people were like pointing out things. So, with every critique, it just makes me, go into shadows and work a little bit harder. So that was kind of how it came about. But, it was really because, I was watching your site, Andrew Price's Blender Cookie, and, noticed that there was just a shortage of videos, like in content. In fact, I've written letters to several of you guys, maybe you too, at some point. But just at the end of, the videos, I mean, sometimes I'd watch a video, and then at the end I'm like, I wish there was something else I could watch that continued on. So that was like the idea. Like, I wish there was a video that just didn't end. I wish there was a video that just kept going until I said no more. So that's kind of what my long videos are. Like, those are for, like, if you're really just bored and you're just willing to sit there and watch me model for that long, either you're really dedicated or you're trying to really learn something. But if I were to break that down into an 18-hour tutorial series, that just, like, time is money. So the longer I've been using Blender, the shorter my patience is for tutorials. Like, even now, like, I do really long ones, but if I'm looking up some stuff, you better not be talking more than 5 minutes, because you're going to lose me, especially if it's a basic question. Like, I start Googling very hard when I need some answers. So that was like the same kind of philosophy was, just something to play at the end of videos, which also kind of opened the idea to, making my videos something a little bit different than what everyone else was offering, which is, also an interesting way to go for everyone that's, making tutorials. Like we see, Andrew Price definitely has his signature style and way of doing things, along with Blender Cookie, along with Caleb Alexandrov, and even along with you guys with y'all's orange intro and the Blend Tuts logo that's recognizable even from space. So everybody, has their niche. So, I still haven't even, like, created, like, an official logo or any of that stuff yet, because, it's all just, I always suspect, like, I'll just change gears at any point. In fact, even now, I'm, like, thinking of what I would do after 3D, if I left 3D. Because my goal is definitely not to be a modeler anymore. Like, a lot of the people I deal with in 3D, they're competing for this job. Like, they're like, I'm going to get this job at XX studio, and that's going to be it. I'm not competing for a job. I'm competing to not get a job. My goal is to not get a job. Like, if I could just get paid to just work in Blender, then, I've succeeded in life. If I could make it in Blender, like, that's it, because it's like it's easy after you've ground long enough in it. But if you come from any other program, Blender is going to be horrible. That's one thing I've learned.
Yeah.
Like, if you come from Maya, you're not going to like it as much. But if you come in here just off the street, never seen another program, this program will become your gospel. Like, that's what happened to me, is I only saw Blender when I came in. So I didn't get Maya and 3ds Max, like, and all those people that are out there that are like, you gotta be using this for games or else you're not gonna make games, or, all that stuff, like all those arguments.
Yeah.
I didn't get hit with that stuff until way late. So by the time I came into the actual Blender community, I had already spent, like, many years actually grinding in private, which, because I thought, when I first picked up Blender, I was like, man, I bet the Chinese and the Asians, like, they already got Blender. Like, they're probably Jackie Chan and cubes, man. Like, I bet they just do, like, lotus moves, and they just, like, cut an object into a person, like, because they like learned all these skills. And then I jump into the Blender community and I learned that it's actually a lot different. And there's, like, more of a confidence issue than there is a, a competitive nature. Like, I'm an extremely competitive guy. Like, if you become my enemy, I'll become your rival, and I will always be in the shadows, making sure that I'm overtaking you in this invisible race that no one's running but me. But it's been my secret to progression, is I pick people out and I just watch them, and I just keep making sure that I'm grinding in the direction I want and not the direction they're going, or that I'm approaching their level of skill. So, it's with everybody. All my rivals are all over my Pinterest, like, all those people. I'm watching them. I'm watching what you do, what you eat, where you sleep. your dating habits, what movies you're watching, what inspires you, what's that book you're reading. I need that book
And
because
so you eat pizza. And
yeah,
so you eat pizza
yeah,
to
yeah. that probably takes down my competitive edge. You eat enough pizza, you have less energy to show people, but I still got enough. Yeah, I'm still driven by pizza. Me and my girlfriend have swore it off probably like 8 times. We were talking before this thing about getting a pizza, just a little pizza, make it through the day.
if I wanted to compete with you, I know that all I have to do is to send you pizzas to your place, so you can start working actually.
Oh yeah, or just send me pictures of robots. Like that's it. Like I have a lot of people that I consider rivals, and we keep it friendly. I'm not like slashing their tires or anything or putting them down, but it's like almost a think tank in which we're exchanging secrets and techniques and it's helping each other push to the next level. So I mean that's the other facet of 3D that probably is never covered is the whole teamwork. If you can find people that you can, be with as a team and grow with, it'll definitely exponentially help you accelerate a lot faster. As far as even my own learning, like I feel I've experimented with it to just see what's working and what's not, like step back and analytically ask myself, hey, I just watched an 8-hour video. What do I remember? I don't remember anything. So I wasted 8 hours. I'm going to stop watching this video and figure out why I did not remember anything that I just watched. So it's, that same kind of thought process. But yeah, think tank, definitely goes a long ways. Like, I mean, even if you read like self-help success books, they talk about how essential it is to have a group of collaborative, non-aggressive people working to the same end, cooperating, because the answers will come from angles that you couldn't begin to comprehend because your mind is so linear in the way it's created that you can't think of that even goes back to HardOps. Like people come up with solutions to problems I can't even see, that's the real exciting part of it, is how much you actually learn in the process of working with others. I mean, when HardOps first came out, I didn't know how to code Python. I just watched Blender Cookie's tutorial on how to make a panel, which is why I had a panel. But that was it. I just watched a tutorial on how to make a panel, used Darren O3Ds, who's the same guy that made Batch Operations, one of my favorite add-ons. He made an add-on that basically records your macros. So all I did was use his script to record macros, use Jonathan Williams' tutorial on how to put operators into menus, and that was it. HardOps was born. And then the more people that got with me, the more that things changed. For example, when Wazoo joined the team, we added Pi menu support. Whenever Mark Brewer, as we call him, operative MKB, joined us, he added panel support. Now, these two users here are very special cases that are worth mentioning. Wazoo is what I call the Pi master. Like, he is a Pi fanatic, and MKB is a panel fanatic. So over the course of learning add-ons, I learned about these two people, and by working with them, we were able to take it to a different level of usability and workflow, opening the door for all different ideas. But it's all through those connections you make with people. So, I mean, I regret not getting on BA sooner, or I don't regret not going out sooner, because otherwise I'd be discouraged like everyone else. But instead, I just kind of kept my head on the grindstone and kept working in Blender, because there's nothing worse than the sounds that were coming in my ear from these people on the telephone. Just like the worst things ever. I mean, I don't think you live in America, so you don't know what West Virginia is, but it's...
I heard of it.
It's rural. It's rural. There, I don't know how fast your internet is, but their internet speed there is like 1 meg and a half.
Wow. Well, I have to say, if I wanted to install actual internet in where I live in the countryside, and so I only have this old internet that is like I think 56 kilobytes.
I was just thinking that when I was doing it. I was like, oh snap, watch Oliver here actually have the same internet that we no longer support, 56K.
Yeah. It's crazy, and I'm almost nearly every 2 or 3 months I go to the internet providers and ask if there is some new plan or if they have support for this area, but nothing is coming for, I don't know, since 10 years ago or something. For a few years I was living in other cities and stuff, so I didn't have these problems. But now we are lucky at least because we have satellite internet, which is actually great. Problem is it's pretty expensive and it usually has limits. Like you cannot transfer more
Whatever.
than a given amount of gigabytes and something like that. But that's a problem for people like me because, if you work with HD videos and if you watch tutorials or upload videos and stuff like that, you can consume very easily several gigabytes of information a day. And they offer plans like 10, 20 gigabytes. That's lovable, nowadays. Like they offer you, like in your phone, you can have like, oh, you now can have up to 3 gigabytes in your phone. Well, if I watch a few YouTube videos, that's gone. And people nowadays just have Netflix in their fucking phones. Well, I maybe should not say that word, but anyway, doesn't matter.
Oh no, no, don't worry
It's
about
my
me.
it's my podcast. Nobody's going to censorship. Um, so yeah, it's internet is not great right here where I live because I live in the countryside. Well, satellite internet, despite of the little delay that we have and stuff, it's actually pretty good. But yeah, that's how it goes here. Okay, just let's keep it going. Are you working like we know about HardOps, and it's probably still a long way to go. Did you plan on developing like much more than it already is, or do you have some roadmap that you know when it will be finished, or just keep adding things to it? How's that going?
Spoiler alert, it ends at 1. By 1, we hope to get it to where we want. Now, we could basically be developing on it forever. However, the amount of features that I'm trying to add to it, the other people on the team are basically telling me that to stop doing that. So that's why it's going to end, is because the code has actually gotten so heavy, and like navigating around requires a tour guide. So since I'm like the main guy, I'm the tour guide. So I'm like, that module's in this file, in this folder, in this folder, in this folder, on this repository, like I'm having to explain all that. So I definitely want to, like in this version, we wanted to add some stuff to deal with lighting, like kind of my own twist on how I'd want to deal with lighting in a full screen mode. So the ideas that we came up with for that were kind of, everybody on the team kept saying that these aren't really hard surface features, and I'm like, well, it's not so much a hard surface tool as much as it's a workflow it's a tool wrapped around a workflow. But yeah, I think it'd be easier to make this one a secondary thing. But so we actually have a couple of ideas that we're just rolling around. But now that I've opened the door for what Blender can be just through scripting, I see that I could change a lot of things that could just be minimal. Like I don't want to radicalize anything in Blender. Like I don't want to come out and be like, this is how I think it should be. I do like the system of working within what we already have, but one of the things I always try to do is keep with the defaults. Like, a lot of people will customize Blender to the point that it's no longer anything like what it is when you first load it, with your default settings, by tricking it out, changing up the UI, rearranging everything. So I always try to keep it very vanilla when I open Blender, so that way people always can see when they see my videos that you can take Blender out the box and do this. You don't have to, there's so many other add-ons that are like almost a complete like rehaul of like the entire system. Yeah. So I don't want to rehaul that system as much as I want to work inside of it. That way, if new developments are happening, I can still work inside of that, and those new features that are added can become part of the system instead of nuances we have to work against or worry about. Like a lot of people write me about Sensei Brush, which is like an interface system. Sensei has like he has an entire he blenders different. like that would be his motto, is blend differently, which is good. But I definitely try to not put users in a situation in which they aren't able to go other places, like, and that's something I find to be important in this community is, supporting everyone else at the same time, because everyone's coming up with add-ons. Like, there's add-ons coming out like every day, and so
Yeah,
it's important
it's
to make
been
sure that you don't break anything.
Yes, yeah, and I find also that when you use a lot of add-ons, because I have found problems in the past because of this, because I used to, as you just said, I used to, customize Blender to a point that it was like only for me, and I have all these add-ons installed and sorted specifically in a specific way. But then a new version of Blender comes out, and some of they break. Some of they don't work as they had expected any longer. Some of them have not been updated for like 2 years. And so at some point things start breaking, or things, you're not actually using the whole potential of Blender because you have customized it in a way that is limited you in some other aspect. Like, for example, it happened very recently that one of my students, I was, sharing this little keyboard shortcut that is when you press Control and 2 in the keyboard, for example, or any other number, it adds a subdivision surface modifier in that specific level of the number that you press. And so it avoids you having to, open the properties window and go to the modifiers and add the subsurface from the list. You just press Control 2 and you add a subdivision surface in a second. However, for this guy, it wasn't working. And we were troubleshooting and seeing what could be happening. And it happened that, in the options of the user preferences, he had enabled the emulating numpad. So he had a numpad, but he was not using it because, well, I have my right hand in the mouse and my left hand is in the left side of the computer, so of the keyboard, and so I have to move my left hand a lot to go to the, or my right hand to go to the numpad. So he was emulating the numpad in the numerical keys of the normal keyboard. So this was overriding the other usability, and he just couldn't do the Control 2 for adding a subdivision surface. And same happened to me at the beginning when I started using Blender, because I came from other software. And I said, like, who selects with right mouse button? I mean, you have to select with left mouse button. So I changed it because it was an option. I discovered it was an option, and I just changed it to the left mouse button. And what happened is that a few weeks later, I started realizing that I was losing usability, because Blender is thought to be used with the right mouse button for selections. And if you use the left mouse button, you are changing the way you're working with Blender, and you're working with it in a way that it wasn't thought for.
Exactly.
So you...
I always describe it as Tan's vision. I always tell people, I'm like, I trust in Tan's vision, like the guy that makes Blender. Like the way that he built it, like, I mean, as far as Blender goes, someone's got to be the captain. So, in Blender, he's my captain. So I take his word for it on all these tools now, instead of, because I have some students, and like, there's one in particular who's actually very good. But when we first started meeting, he was like, yeah, I'm actually using the silo configuration, which usually when people tell me they're using a special configuration, I'm like, well, it was fun talking to you. Thank you for your time. I'm not dealing with that because I'm going to say, do this, and it's not going to do it. Like, I've already been through this, but it's strange. Like, I think Blender is, it's so wired at everything. So, I mean, if you start remapping buttons, like, especially if you remap W, right? W is special everywhere. Yeah. It almost makes sense if you had like no sleep and you really think about it. Like, it makes sense. Like, I always tell people, the hotkeys in Blender, most of them have something to do with the function you're doing. Like, N is, or M is for move layer, L is for link, P is for parenting, O is for proportional editing. That doesn't make any sense, but, D is for draw with the grease pencil. That makes sense somewhere. So,
Yeah, or grab, rotate, and scale. There are a lot of them that make sense.
So in Blender, I have only like 2 buttons I dare deal with. Well, I'm also using a Mac keyboard with this PC. Even though I'm on a PC, I still can't let go of that Mac keyboard, so I had to get one. but it has, normal keys end at F12, but I have all the way from F13 all the way to F19. So I have those mapped to special things in Blender, but usually Control tilde, Shift tilde, and Alt tilde. Like I'll always remap that. Like for example, like I have this selection here, right? Like one of my favorite features in Blender is going to select and choosing select boundary loop, because it'll just select the outside of whatever's selected, right? So you can just like make a selection and just go to select boundary loop. So as you can see, right here, I actually have that right clicked and map to change shortcut to Shift tilde. So that way I just press Shift tilde to immediately grab it, and I can press Control Tab to mark sharp. But every instance I set that Control tilde, Alt tilde, Shift tilde to something else. Like if I'm exporting a bunch of OBJs, then Shift tilde is import and export OBJs, and Alt tilde is doing something else like that. And then just per instance, I keep changing those hotkeys. And so that's how I kind of keep it like variable. But I mean, now I've got this crazy macro mouse. But all I got mapped on that is Q. Q. Every button's Q. Q is like, and that was another thing. Like that was the one incompatibility issue I dealt with the most with HardOps was the Q button. When I first set up HardOps, I decided I was like, I'm taking the Q. I don't care who owns it. I'm borrowing it. I need it. Like I made the script. I need to get it to pop up. I need a button. So
and if you think about it, there's probably no button left, because everyone, if you take all the add-ons that are in the market and all the options in Blender, any key on the keyboard that you pick is probably already being used by another one. So yeah, it makes sense to use the Q. In fact, I really don't know what the Q is for in Blender by default.
Well, that's the next thing.
I actually only use the add-ons,
I think it's used by Amaranth Tools. I think it's also used by Katie Tools, and it's also used by Viewport Pies.
And the Math Utils, which is an add-on that allows you to quickly just add a material from a list and stuff like that. But they are all add-ons, by default in Blender without add-ons. Do you know what Q does?
Nope, nothing. So neutrally it does nothing, but neutrally, if you get a neutral Blender and you turn on the pie menus, it activates Viewport Pies. So there's already an add-on built into Blender that's built to take Q, but I always tell people to use the numpad keys, but a lot of people have notebooks, it turns out. So that was like a big issue whenever we first developed it, but we just kind of moved past it. Like, I mean, after a while, we set up support where people can just change the key. I mean, I'm not even worried about it anymore. Like we're trying to add more tools to this thing. We're not trying to think about this key all damn day. But yeah, like that's something I'll definitely have to take into consideration with the next plugin I make is to make sure to have a key setup that's like neutral, like a Q, Shift Q, and I think Control Shift Q, like those worked for this one, but I'm pretty sure, I think the next thing I'll try to plug into the same system, because we put a lot of thought into the system we had to try to make it where people don't get menu-itis from looking at the Q menu. So it's like three options, one option with an override for all the options, and then 3 options. So it's 3 options, 1 option, 3 options. These 3 options will dynamically change according to what the situation is, giving you the most relevant option. This is where you can just run an option regardless. And then these are like, specials. So, at first, when this was the first version, like, I actually installed every version of HardOps ever on Blender and tried to just go through them and use it. But before 005, this plugin was rubbish. As a creator, this plugin was rubbish. Like the usability, the menu was long. Like it had like, I think 20 options at one point. And people were commenting on a video saying, like there's a lot of options. So it's always a struggle. So, I mean, even with the next plugin, like, I think the best system would be to keep on the HardOps system and just make it plug in and expand on it somehow and just add additional menus or something like that, since I've went through so much work to borrow the queue. In fact, even the icons that you see here, the icons were made by Adam Kroll, who joined the team after 006. And basically all he does is make icons. but he is the best damn icon maker ever. Like, I don't know if people remember the icons back when I made them, but they were pretty bad. But the icons that
I remember. I remember them.
yeah, they were just orange. They're obnoxious, and I actually modeled them in the Blender Viewport, as I do everything. Like people actually make fun of me for it because I use Blender as Adobe Illustrator, as a Photoshop at times. Like, I use it for all sorts of stuff. Like, I'll be working with Jacques, and he'll say, "Hey, this idea that you're talking about, can you just put it on paper? Because that's how I work, because I don't care. Just put it on paper. That's better." So I'll just go in Blender and start extruding shapes, inset, delete the faces in the middle, make like some squares, put text objects in it, and just build flowcharts. And, you know, it's so much easier. Like, I almost feel sometimes that Blender could be taken into other areas, like other areas that haven't even been talked about yet. Like, Blender could have the same control scheme, be a graphic editor. Like, you just grab a layer, press G or R or S. Like, I mean, we would love it. Photoshop people would hate the hell out of that thing, though. Oh man, they'd 9/11 us over something like that. Like, I mean, you think GIMP gets a lot of crap? Yeah, you try doing something like. But I was talking with someone else about it. I was like, hey, imagine if to move your desktop icons, you had to press B to box select it, press G to grab your desktop icons and move it. That would be Blender OS, right? And I don't think I would use that.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the thinking process I've been giving myself is, let's take some of these tools and think of them if we were asking regular people to use them, and just kind of approach it like that. Like, I mean, my dream job would definitely be to have any involvement with the development team of this. So, I mean, I'm hoping that it gets their attention at some point to at least show them that I've used Blender long enough that I wouldn't suggest something that would go against, you know, Tan's vision, like, hey, we should just turn this bitch into Max, you know, like, I'm not going to do that, but let's you know, get some of these tools to line up right. Like, you know, there's some things with the knife tool that we've been talking about internally a lot, because the knife is like almost perfect. I mean, it's almost perfect. Like, it previously was nowhere near perfect, and then close to perfect, and then the side of perfect, but that thing is damn near perfect now. Almost.
Yeah, it's very great. It's very great. In fact, some people I know, you know, in the previous versions, it was the knife, but now it's like the super knife. But it can still be the ultra knife.
I call it the holy knife now, since you can now cut through it, even through it on the Z. Like, I call it that holy knife in my videos. I'm like, let's holy knife it like a knife through butter. You know, there's not a lot of programs that'll let you just like cut through it so cleanly. Like, even in ZBrush with slice curve, you don't have point-to-point knife control. You just have a curve that's going to either turn your face into a try or just split it however it has to. Like, you'll get a pretty straight line, but it's going to brutalize your geo in the process compared to the way that Blender has it.
Yeah. It's come a long way, definitely. I mean, I can think about when I got started with Blender, and I see it now. And oh man, it's really amazing, the progress. I think I started with version just before you, 2.48, I think, was the first version I ever used of Blender. And the progress has been amazing. All right, and well, we have been talking for more than an hour already, so we will be wrapping up very soon. So looking at your works, there is a lot of hard surface and robots. You also mentioned robots before, like, you know, if I want to
Oh,
compete with you, I can send you photos of robots so you get just stuck there. So what inspires you? What did you take as an inspiration for creating those robots, and or is there a specific reason why you like robots so much?
A lot of the stuff in the way I work now is dictated by advice I've received from people that I think are much better artists than me, in my opinion. So whenever I'm not, you know, making videos or goofing off, there's some people that I'm actually hanging out with like 24/7 who are very on the ball, kind of like I am, where it's like art 24 hours a day. So they're always giving me advice that's essential. But one of the best pieces of advice I got when I first met these guys was from a friend of mine, Andy Nolan, who basically was telling me that my work was random. Like that was the best way to describe it. Like when it comes to critique, the best critique is always, of course, the critique where they tell you what's wrong and then, of course, tell you how to improve it. If they don't tell you how to improve it, then they're just criticizing you, which isn't the same as critique. They're just bashing you. So he was telling me that, that I could probably take my art to another level if I actually began putting a story behind it and a reason behind everything in the works. So all these robots I'm doing is like almost an experiment in focusing on character creation. Like I also sculpt a lot of humans in between as well. My goal is to be able to sculpt pretty girls and robots with ease. Pretty girls definitely much harder than robots, so you don't see a lot of posts of those. But I do sculpt a lot of people. And just practice in the shadows, because you post a person and the person doesn't look right, people are going to definitely tell you it looks bad. And every time I post people, like I get so much negative critique that is of no use, so I just kind of keep that on my end. So there's a lot of stuff I actually don't post because it's just like I'm just studying this. If I was looking for advice, I'd post and ask for advice, but really I'm just seeing, like, I almost feel that sculpting humans tells me myself more about my understanding of what humans are, because you look at a human, you look at your picture and you look at your result and you're like, well, this isn't what I wanted. Well, I mean, instead of focusing on that, what you should ask yourself is, what is it that you see in people that isn't translating to your work? Or is this how you truly see people? Do you see only eyes of people? Is that why your eyes are huge on your models? Or, it's like, these are the questions you got to ask yourself, because this is what will push it to another level. So a lot of people, have always told me to try to attach stories behind all these models. So, I mean, even my favorite model robot that you always see, Dukes, has quite a story behind him. So my goal is to continue working on robots until that story is put together. But for now, it's just real abstract. Like, I'm just almost doing the same characters over and over. Like I tell people about when I first started Blender, I did all these projects. I tried to model a wagon and a dinosaur and like a car. Like I did like tables and apartments, like these projects, right? And they were themed projects. But the thing is that after a period of time of studying and practicing, I would actually come back to those same projects. Not that project. I wouldn't open that blend file. Come on, it's old. I'm not going to open that again. But I will say in my head, I'm revisiting the wagon idea, and I'll remodel that same wagon. So, I mean, this is something I also recommend to all artists, is to, pick your themes that you like to do, and then just visit them occasionally. Don't make a project out of it where it takes you like 8 years to complete, but just a little quick day activity. Just you remodel something that you once struggled with, just to see if you truly surpassed your Ghost Racer in Mario Kart. Like just. Just test it. So I've went back and I've remodeled so much stuff. Like, I mean, and so a lot of stuff you see, like Dukes, will continue being remade until, the way I see it is, when the public loves him, and they say that's the model right there. Like that's a very fine model. I love him, and people are actually responding pretty well to him now. So. Once he's there, then I know that he's ready for the next thing. Like, because my goal is, of course, to put this stuff in film and eventually make music videos, since I'm quite passionate about music. But I also see that if I go forward trying to push something without the skills to back it up, or at least convey my vision as I truly intend it to be, it's going to be misinterpreted, and people are going to laugh at me. And I don't want people laughing at something that isn't comedic. You can laugh at it if it's comedic, but don't be laughing at it because the animation's bad or the faces are bad. So because of that same thought process, it keeps me working a lot more in the shadows, working on the next level, while also keeping in mind that this may not be that thing that I want to take to the bank. Because while it looks good to me, my eyes may not have adjusted to what truly looks good. And since I've been doing 3D, my opinion on what looks good has changed repeatedly. I mean, let me see if I can bring up a picture, bring up Dukes. Let's see, I think it doesn't give me a start menu whenever we're hanging out. All right, that's weird. But anyways, I'm also using Andrew Price's pro lighting plugin here at the end. But yeah, over the course, I've made the same character over and over. So people are like, why are you always making robots? Is there something with these robots? Like, they're actually for something. I actually want a world of these robots. So in order to make a world, I'm going to have to make a lot of robots. So that's why I make so many. But some of them are actually upgraded versions of their predecessors because they're still not there yet. They're almost there, but they're not as cool as I pictured them in my head. So I can't take them further until they really give the feeling to the viewer that I want them to give. And that's just me though. Like, there's a lot of people I think that are doing it the opposite way, and they're working on their life's work as their first project. And like, these are people that get with me and they're like, what do you think of this? I'm like, you don't want to know. Like, yeah, I do. And I'm like, well, you should stop this right now. Don't give any of this stuff a name. This animation is so horrible. Don't give it a name. This is untitled animation number 59. You are perfecting your craft. Back in the woodworks with you, because look at these people. These, like, I mean, you see, Andrew Price making blog posts saying that we need to hold a candle up to Pixar and stuff like that, which, that particular blog post caused a little bit of a turmoil in the community because people misinterpreted it. But the way I did interpret it is that you have to hold a candle up to the people that you want to be like. You can't just, oh my God, I'll never be like this guy. I used to look at the most possible robots and be like, I'll never be able to do that. But my attitude changed, and it's like, I can't model that, but I can steal stuff from it. I can steal that bolt. I like that idea on that eye. I like that leg. I like that foot. I'm going to take that piece with me. That metal shader, I like that. I'm going to try to emulate that. Like, you have to take it with you. Like, I mean, and this is art we're talking about. The proof is in the pudding. You're looking at the work in front of you.
Yes. Exactly, and it's like I think that's a good attitude, because it's like you are kind of working on improving every time, and you're repeating. I like what you said, that you like to revisit the old models and try to improve on them, right? Because I think that's the way to learn. And about stealing parts of the of works that you see. Long ago, when I got started in 3D, I would look at some work and I would say like, oh my God, I will never be able to do this. But after a while, you start improving, each time you see that you can do better and better works. And at some point, your attitude changes totally, dramatically. And whenever you see a work that you actually want to do, your attitude, your look at it will be like more in the way of, okay, I'm going to do this, but I'm not there yet, but I know that if with some work and with some passion on it and with some practice, at some point I will be able to do that. Because you have that experience that you have been improving in the last few works that you did, and so you can keep improving all the time. And but it's kind of difficult to see, especially when you are getting started. So I think that's a good attitude right there.
Yeah, it's so impossible to measure your own improvement. Like, that's why you have to revisit a project, because you won't see it just day to day. Like, oh man, I think I've gotten better. Like, I've leveled up. By the time you actually get past that, it won't even matter anymore. You won't even be asking yourself that. You'll just be like, this doesn't look the way I want it to. Like, it doesn't look good enough to impress people. No, it doesn't even matter. The other people don't matter. They're just there to help you gauge if you're, moving forward. I mean, you're really working to please yourself, but, I always feel that, the users of Blender should always be trying to do something, at least in a way of helping push the name forward a bit. I guess that's a hard way. I guess that's hard to explain, but yeah, it's like it's the responsibility of all of us as artists, as Blender users, especially passionate ones. If you're a crazy fan, especially, you have to, you're its reputation. You're the person that people are going to look to as, that's why I should pick up Blender, or that's why I should not pick up Blender. Which also helps that well-rounded understanding, because a lot of people are just like, I'd pick up Blender if I just knew how to do this. Well, it's not that hard. Just do this, and this. But yeah, it's like a different strategy for everybody I've met so far.
Yeah, of course, each person has different views on it and different, if you have a different personality, the things that work for you or for me might not work for another person. So it's totally understandable. And you're right about that because actually when I got started into Blender, one of the general complaints from people was that, you looked at works being done with Max and you saw quality. You looked at works being done with Maya and you saw quality, like things that you would see in the cinema back then or in video games. But then you looked at Blender works and it was, it's like every Blender user was an amateur and it was like medium quality stuff at most, at best. And so it was kind of difficult to get into Blender because it was like, well, I want to do the things that are in the cinema, not the things that look amateur, And so it gave the impression that Blender couldn't get it farther than that. But that has been changed a lot over the last few years, and it starts to be like very professional artists working with Blender, and so it's time we see like better and better works being done with Blender, and that's, I think, a benefit for the community, for Blender itself, because it can keep evolving and attracting new users, and so I think that's something good, and with yeah, you want to comment something on that?
One of the things I like most about Unreal, besides how it closes, is the launch screen, the splash that comes, the screen that comes, the Unreal Epic launcher. Now, I know Blender people would never want a Blender launcher, but I do love how it takes you into a marketplace where you can download test scenes and look at works that are impressive and break it down and see how they did it. Like the Epic people build like such crazy scenes in Unreal and they just give them out for free. Like don't care. Just give out these epic scenes that you can just break down and look at. And like, if we ever do anything with the next Blender, I would definitely like to see like a system that kind of helps new users in, and it just points them at, like, it could even be like a curated by blend swap type thing where people just pointed at like some of the coolest blends of blend swap, because there's a lot of awesome stuff in Blender that people just aren't aware of.
Yeah, there is.
And especially even on blend swap, like I scroll through there sometimes and I come across like gems, like most of my material libraries from blend swap, just materials I've tweaked over time.
Yeah, and also sorry?
Saying also in starter models, like that's something that 3D Coat has. Like you can start off with like a base mesh of a person that's really simple.
Oh yeah,
like that kind of stuff. But yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh no problem, no problem. Yeah, I agree with that, and it's good to. It's always good, and I think it's a good move from the Unreal guys because it lets you, when you're getting started with a program, it's not only that you will learn by analyzing those scenes and seeing how things work and how they are being made, but it's also, I think, some kind of motivation, because suddenly you open the program and you have something to look inside it that is really amazing, and that makes you want to do something like that, right? It's not like if you open Blender and all you have to look at is a cube, or the best thing you can build from scratch is a monkey head. So I think
that monkey has to grow up. Like it's time we evolve it into like a gorilla beast, like Suzanne, the hulking gorilla. Just like that would be like the craziest insert. But I know that's just blasphemy. People love that Suzanne.
yeah, and it's like a kind of a symbol of Blender, right? Because it's like in 3ds Max they have the teapot, right? That is, it's a symbol of 3ds Max. If they change it, some people would complain because it's kind of a joke, right? That comes from the beginning of the software, but yeah, I would like to see an evolved version of Suzanne. In fact, I actually I saw it. Someone did it, and I saw it in a video, and I was like, hey, you know what? Let's do the same. Eventually, I changed it, but for a while, I had I took the Suzanne head and I remodeled it. Like I added detail to it, and I added like some kind of armor to the head, and so I set up Blender so it opened with this, super cool version of the Suzanne's head. But after a while, I got bored of that one, and I changed it for the simple one again. There's one thing that I wanted to ask you, and this is a question that is from one of my students because I told them that I would be interviewing you, and some of the questions they made have already been answered along this podcast, and some of them I already made them. Okay, but this one is specifically from one of the students, and it's like a lot of your works have a lot of detail. Like this cube that you have done here, for example, is like probably kind of more or less random exercise like you do for warming up or things like that. But sometimes you're modeling a robot, and you may have inside your head, you may have an initial design or something. So to which point do you plan one of these designs, and to which point you improvise? How do you mix those two aspects of the design?
Well, the block and end phase is really essential, but the part in the part in character creation where you're locking into proportions is definitely the most important. Like probably one of the biggest pieces of advice I always give to people that write me about stuff is, let me see your block in. Oh, I didn't have a block in. All right, that's where you went wrong. Because if you get a winning block in, you can't go wrong. Like if you block your character out with cylinders and spheres, and you get the proportions to indicate the character standing in the way that you want him to, just in that simplest format of just cubes and spheres, then you see what can be already just from the silhouette and the proportions being locked down, that you can grow it. So, usually in robots, the next thing I'll do after that will be, building the forms, the surfaces, polishing it up, and just kind of locking down just the whole form. So everything's still manifold at this point. Pretty much, and I'm still in sculpt mode, no detail, no standard brush or dam brush like I always make. And then, after you nail down the surface and you have like your plating kind of laid down, then, that's when you want to think about the detail. So in a lot of my videos, especially if you watched How to Concept a Robot in Blender, which I think is my least favorite video, but my most popular video, like I basically started off just carving the forms in there of the separations of the surfaces. But the main thing I always think of now is like form lines. Like, the best robot in the world you could probably reference, unfortunately, isn't a robot, but a guy in a robot, and that's Iron Man. Like Iron Man is like a robot that's been scientifically perfected to be like the most aesthetically pleasing, sexy robot human being like ever created. Like, I mean, the style and language and the forms and the curves and contours and the way that it's built, like it speaks a lot. Like I actually, I was talking with one of my friends the other day, and he was showing me some Iron Man images, and like I realized he was showing me like a couple of gigs of images. Like, oh my God, send me these images, dude. Like I am always looking at Iron Man. But it's all in studying those forms. Like before, when it comes to a robot, especially a robot is, in my opinion, a little bit easier than a human, because when it comes to the joints and the articulation areas, all you gotta think is just something similar to a machine. I'm not, like I always say in my videos, I'm no engineer. So, the stuff that I put in it is like stuff that's inspired by other robot joints that I look at. But I have a whole Pinterest board of just joints. But the joints is, what's most important, because you want them to, flush with the geometry, but also not penetrate and clip each other whenever the arm bends. So you want to have enough flesh distance. But after you start putting in the, the brakes in the geo for the hinges and stuff, then everything else is just surface. So, some of the videos I go a little overboard, and it's sometimes I go overboard with all the details just for demonstration, just to kind of get a point across that you can just keep going, like with the detail, like there is no, I detailed it too much. Like, I mean, I always explain in HardOps, there's this thing called hot lining, where basically if you bull tool an edge that's parallel, if you bull tool it just right on that edge, it will not work out, because you did what I call hot lining, which is where you put a double right on top of a double, which causes the Boolean to go crazy. So a lot of people have problems with that because of that particular behavior, not aware that that's a behavior caused by hot lining. So yeah, that's kind of like the same approach, is you block in the forms. Like, you got to block it in and then surface it. So, for HardOps is really intended to be a surfacing tool, like S Sharp and C Sharp, and those are built because the mesh has to be smooth and look good from point A to point B without adding extra geo. Like we could just put subsurf, put subdivision, divide it, make the mesh heavy, but really you want to get those forms without adding all the extra geo, because the subdivision is going to add a lot, like, all the things that are heavy, you want to measure that and decide if that's really a battle you want to fight. Like sometimes I don't want to use multi-res because multi-res will definitely bloat your blend file by like 100 megabytes. That's a lot of megabytes to add just to sculpt. So instead, I would rather just sculpt in dynamic topo, retopo it, clean it up, delete the junk file, and just have a cleaned up mesh and deal with it like that instead of bloating the file to an unimaginable length, or just work with multi-res per session. So it's really, a matter of picking your battles. But also, build a Pinterest board. Like, build a Pinterest board of robots you like. Like, if you see people on Facebook in these groups, 10,000 hours, Verge of Epic, making robots, and you like their style and their joints, just start building a board of it and just go in Photoshop and start cropping them. And, like, I have, like, Photoshop documents of just nothing but joints I cut off of people. And I'll just zoom through this document of joints and just be like, I like this guy's joint, but mixed with this joint. And, earlier we were talking about stilling. My policy with stilling is if you can pull it out of your head, it's yours. So a lot of the stuff I do, like sometimes I'll just get a whole bunch of Pinterest board robots, just stack them all up and just trace over them. Just trace over them in Photoshop and just draw their forms and just study only the forms and just do studies like that. Like, I'll literally, if you do some work that's good, I'm going to be drawing over your work in Photoshop, analyzing you. Like, this guy put a 45-degree angle right here, because that's the type of stuff that really is what's making it. Like, people look at it and they're like, how you do them details, it's like, zoom in on the fucker. Zoom in on that thing. And really just, like, I see someone makes a fun piece of art and I see it, I'll keep it in my browser for days and I'll stare at their work for days and I'm just like, damn, how did they do that? I got to do that. I wish I could do that. And then when people message me and they're like, Jerry, what are you doing? Oh, I'm just looking at this piece. And then I'll have them stare at this piece. I'm like, man, look at this. How do you think they did that, dude? Like, you think we could do something like that? Like, what do you think it took? Like, just crazy, especially ArtStation. Like, ArtStation is just like, I call it art porn because I just go there and I just get stuck browsing through the feed, and it's just dames and guns and machines and robots, and like, these people are all, everyone on ArtStation is better than you or better than me or better than anybody. Like, they know where these people are, but don't look at it like that. The way I see it is they can't take your job. Half of them are probably not even in your country, and then the other half of them can't make your country take your job. So it's worldwide. So, and then the other half.
And luckily, sorry, I didn't want to cut you.
Oh, no, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, no problem. No, my take on that about, because some people ask me, because I'm a freelancer as well, I'm trying to get into the teaching more, in depth and just kind of leave the freelancing on the side. But still, I am a freelancer. And some people ask me, why do you teach other people? Because they are going to get your job. And I'm like, no, they are not. And luckily, we are in a society in which design and 3D stuff and whatever, each year is more and more popular. Now you have 3D in mobile phones. Each day, there is more content that people is exposed to. Someone needs to create all that content. And there are probably not enough good artists out there. In fact, yes, it's true that there is a lot of artists, but there is a lot more demand. The problem is that there is a lot of artists, but not all of them are good, or not all of them, even if they are really good and you look at their works and they are amazing, but maybe they don't fit on a specific job for a company, because maybe they are too slow, or maybe they take too much time on do a work and you need to deliver very quickly, or maybe they are not persistent. Whatever, there are a lot of different variables there, right? But still, nowadays I think you can, if you're really good, you will get a job. It's I just think like that is the case, because there are new companies, especially now that there is all this indie thing, like if you don't get a job, and you are good, you can sell your own stuff. It's possible nowadays, right?
Oh yeah, I definitely believe in it. Like I was actually thinking about making a course about how to survive in Blender because it's like an underground that people aren't actually aware of. But you can survive using Blender. You just have to be particularly good at Blender. That's the part that you got to do first is actually learn how to use the program, and then the money is there. Like I'm a perfect example of how to survive without clients. Like I literally right now I could be like, no, Mr. Klein, I don't want to do that job that I don't want to do where I have to model a teddy bear and UV unwrap it and go through 800 damn revisions and all this crap. Like I could just say no because I'm already busy in other endeavors. Like the ability to survive is definitely there. You just have to think a little bit outside the box. But I mean, a lot of, like if you talk to anyone that's using like Maya or Max, they're going to say like, there's no money in Blender. Like, oh, I'm trying to get a job,
Yeah, that is right.
But there's a better route though. Like there's a lot of people that also I see a lot of 3D artists, especially in the Blender community, that are like just going towards Fiverr. Fiverr is like the last place you should go if you're a 3D artist.
Yeah, because if you're asked to do anything 3D because it's very complex and they will pay you $5, I think it's $5, right?
It's exactly $5. It's $5. Like if you're going to do 3D work for $5, and these people that sign up on Fiverr, I'm their first customer because it's hilarious. Like here, make this robot. Oh, you don't want to do this robot for $5? All right, lesson learned. Because this is a robot you charge him $1,000 for.
Yeah.
The image that I have here on my screen is definitely a perfect example, I think, on your student's question as far as building up the forms and then worrying about the articulation.
The details.
Like on this one, I always start off with the block-in. Like there's always a block-in underneath because if this fails, I can always just come back here and just restart with my proportions. But the first step is always, just nailing down the forms. Like all of this is just me polishing and just driving these forms just like I want this form to curve around the eye and come here and, just all of this. Like, and this is, kind of what the modeling tools are lacking that I'm trying to remedy with, the integration of mirror tools, among other things, to try to get like this sort of forming modeling, and so you can actually deal with these curves because you're dealing with it edgewise. You're going to just be cutting and hacking and just trying to make your way through it. But because it's topology, like if you start twisting it, it's just going to become a skewed face. So you can't really twist a vert too much in the lieu of keeping a face a quad region. But yeah, that should answer that now. Just follow up. Sorry.
No problem. Now that you mentioned topology, I would like to know your take on topology. Like, for example, when you work with HardOps, it's like, as you said before, you're not going to use a subsurf modifier, and it's not going to break because you're not going to use it. But if you need like a lot of detail when you are close to an object and you have curved surfaces that are probably difficult to achieve with the use of booleans and these sort of things, or bevels, what's your take on topology in those aspects?
I'm a big fan of retopology. And in fact, that was one of the things I learned how to do quite well when I was working in a call center. Like I said, I'd go in every day and I'd just try to like do stuff before the end of shift. So one of those things was retopology. So retopology is actually something I do quite fast. Like a lot of people always ask me about that, and I just tell them, I don't know what to tell you because I don't have a problem with it. Like, for example, ice tools also got retopo flow. However, retopo flow is still working its way around to being for hard surface. So ice tools, however, will let you just kind of set up manually. In fact, I'm using 2.7, so there's actually a glitch here. But I mean, in normal cases, I could just vert origin invert mirrored. All right, so and now just go in face snapping mode, pressing every button but the one I need. All right, and so just let's say I was just getting this front face. Let's see, in my vertex mode, there we are. All right. So I mean, even just this piece here, it's simple work. So a lot of the things that you see me do in my videos, like sometimes I'll model a form real basically, do a little subdivision smoothing to get it to be rounded enough to be non-faceted. That's another thing too that HardOps is aimed at, is preventing its faceting. Like with faceting, it of course requires you have enough geo, but only just enough geo to prevent faceting, because rounded edges will definitely make your model look gamey. And most people are making their models and they're intending to present it. So having it look that way, is definitely an unintended response. But I mean, even right here, I'm using F2 to just grab a vert and press F to just throw it out.
Mm-hmm.
And my origin's messed up, so it's like over here to make me angry. We'll just cursor selected.
Yeah, no problem. No problem, no problem. You don't need to retopo the whole robot then.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm not going to do the whole thing. But, I mean, you're about to see, I'll bring up the modifier helper, turn on clipping, because that's handy as hell, right? And, 5 Fs and we're done, just with this piece here. So, in the geo, you see that it's like needing to be a little smooth. So a little edge sliding will go a long ways. Like GG is probably one of the smartest choices a Blender Foundation has ever made as far as changing to modeling, making it where you press G to activate edge slide instead of pressing Control E and going to edge slide. Like when they made that change, I was so blown away. And that's like very minor. That's workflow changing. And I looked at it like it was a new feature. Like F2 is probably one of the greatest tools also in Blender. Like you'll never see F2 in Maya or Modo or 3ds Max or anywhere else. Like F2, you know what I'm talking about too, right? The sequel to F.
Yeah. Yeah, I use it. I use it a lot. And Ice Tools and the slide, I really love the slide. There's one thing I miss though about the slide, and is that I would like another sliding method that actually keeps the shape and not only slides over the edges. Because when you're using subdivision surface, sometimes the sliding through the edge, across the edge, you lose the shape, right? Because you're getting it closer to the other vertex, and you get a kind of a corner at some points. And if you're working on a rounded shape, it's easy to break it up. But still, it's really, really cool. I loved it too when they got this sliding tool with the GG, and also it's very, very quick because you can just move it or you press it twice and just slide it. It's just great. Great decision.
Like right here, you see, I got this piece already done. It's already like solidified, clean geo, ready for the world. Also delete these faces in between. And so, this is done. But I mean, that's what retopology is to me. It's just going in, just real quickly, just rebuilding the form. So, I mean, I think I've just practiced enough with it that I maybe make it look like less of a deal than it is. But I actually do a lot of retopo on my side, in case I never explained that to users that are watching this. So much retopo. At first on HardOps, all the way up to like HardOps version 006, at first we were trying to send these meshes out to Substance Painter and stuff, but we realized that there's like wasted islands, interior faces. It's just garbage geo. It's just easier to do a bake to. So, I hope that people approach this like almost like a Dynamesh sculpting for modeling almost. Like you could send this stuff out if you wanted, but I wouldn't send this stuff to my mother because it's like tries and n-gons everywhere. Like, you use your common sense here. But you remember I was telling you that HardOps was intended to be a bit of a learning experience, and part of what it's intended to learn, what it's intended to learn people, what it's intended to teach people, is hopefully as you're slicing things and Boolean things and correcting things, that you see how these problems occur. Like, that's a crazy thing to say, but that is the truth of it. Is if you're monitoring your HardOps usage enough to see how these things are occurring, like, I feel that alone should help you become a better modeler, because you're troubleshooting issues that you may not normally come into because you're always modeling safe. But if you're always dealing with doubles and n-gons and crazy geo situations, like, I mean, it's almost like second nature to me. Control X is my best friend in the world. Just dissolve. Don't bring up a menu. Just dissolve it.
Yes.
So
Yeah, I'm actually, I mean, I agree with you. And I think for me, one of the best things that happened to me is that one of my first works was actually cleaning models that someone else did. And I learned so much cleaning those models because I learned how to spot the problems and how to solve them. And that really is a deal breaker.
Yeah, so instead of cleaning up for someone else, which you will hate, you clean up for yourself, which isn't so bad. But
Yeah,
I
of
mean, I
course.
feel that even I have like picked up so many small little like tidbits. Just like I mean, the whole thing with hotlining, I didn't even know about that really until I started using HardOps. I was like, man, some of these booleans just don't work out. Like people are always asking, what's it like when you bool a curved surface? It's exactly like it was last time you booled a curved surface. A goddamn
Yeah.
tragedy because it's a curved surface. Curved surface, you need a little bit of care.
Yes, yes, yes. All right. So to wrap it up, one last question, and we will leave because it's been almost 2 hours already. Wow, I didn't expect it to be that long, but well, it's great talking to you. So, okay. In one of your articles, this is another question from one of my students. In one of your articles, I think it is in your blog. The student sent me the link, but I don't have it right here. Um, that is kind of biography. You say that, quote, life for me is but a spark, but if I can make a fire within you, then my job is done. So what would you have some advice for people who's trying to get started into Blender or that they are getting started on modeling or hard surface modeling? What advice could you give that to them?
Read the wiki, learn Google Foo, connect with friends, make friends, join a group. Best advice, like what else? Also, keep all your renders. Don't let all your renders go. There was this one time in the call center that someone came up to me and was like, "Hey, that looks really cool. What is that?" I was like, "It's Blender." It's like, "That's cool. Can I get a copy of it?" I erased everything I ever did over the last 2 years at that moment and gave him a copy of Blender accidentally, deleting all my work.
Wow.
So don't do that. Get a photo bucket or an art station and back it up. You know, just it's all about having fun, but also be analytical of your progression because the further you go without progressing, the more frustrating it'll get. And then I think, like I always feel that there's like this attitude I think in the community where. Like I was telling you, like people are just self-defeated. So I try to tell people things that prevents them from getting to that self-defeated state. So definitely be analytical of your progressions. Look over your last 20 renders and think like, is this where I'm wanting to go with this? But definitely have fun. But by the time you're 3 years in or 4 years in, you're not going to have the patience to watch tutorials anymore. So educating yourself is going to
Yeah.
become harder. So that first time that you're in 3D, like when you first pick it up, that's your most enthusiastic you're going to ever be. After that, you're not going to get more enthusiastic. You get less enthusiastic. So you have to really push it while you have that energy because you have energy you don't know what you had at the beginning. And when it's gone, it's just gone. You're just getting on a computer just like, damn polygons. Like, you don't want that. Like, you have to set yourself up for success. So, if I would have started over again, giving myself some advice, it definitely would have been to, connect with people, pick rivals, and, do projects that you can redo after a period of time, sometimes after just watching a course, dude, like go back and remodel your wagon and just see how quick you can do it. But a lot of the stuff that I do, like sometimes I'll just start it over and just see if I could have done it easier. Like this was good, but this was a ton of work. So you want to analyze how you're working too. Like it's really in being analytical, like not only of people around you, but more importantly of yourself. Because when that enthusiasm's gone, it's gone. And then that's when people either leave 3D art or stop doing 3D or go get a real job or drop the dream or all that stuff. And like, if you work your way there, if you're 3 years in at this point now and you haven't improved to the point that you want to, like, it's definitely you want to deal with that immediately, or at least, find out why you're not, because there could be just something stopping you. Like sometimes you got to ask yourself if you're just being stubborn. Like I always go through and check these other programs. Like, I use every program under the sun now, because if they're getting a feature that I don't know about, like I'm missing out on something. Like, I mean, I don't pick Blender because I love Blender. I mean, I do pick Blender because I love Blender, but I also pick it because it's the best tool for the job. It loads quick. You can open 15 instances of Blender. It opens in 3 seconds. No Autodesk program has that. If you open 3 Maya, if you open 3 Mayas, your computer is screwed. You can open like 15 Blenders. Like I'll have Blender crashing in one window and I'll be reopening it in another, just to, show a point. So, that flexibility, that's the reason that I stick with Blender. Like when at the Blender conference, when Tom was like saying, I don't believe any program should have an installer. Like I was like, hell yeah, dude, that's exactly right.
Hey, that was a great impersonation of Thorn. You should.
I've been practicing it. I'm going to be the next time.
That's great. That's some great advice. Some great advice. Really, people just look at your works and get to improve them and to save them so that you can look at them in the future and see how much you have improved. Or if you haven't made any improvement, there is definitely something to check out and get back to work. So Jerry, thank you very much for being with us. Or what? Well, you were going to say something?
Oh no! You're closing. I'll let you close. Sorry.
All right. So Jerry, thank you very much for being with us. Thank you for letting us pick your brain for a while, and see you another time. It's been a pleasure.
Always a pleasure, Oliver.
All right. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Bye.